Remember when George Strait sang, "All my exes live in Texas"? That's why he hung his hat in Tennessee. But here's the thing, George, he didn't have to deal with Canada's housing market.
Rent is over $2,000 a month, which is more than what I'm paying for my mortgage. For now, this is our best option. Even though, as I say, the quality of life is not good.
She calls it her best option, but best doesn't sound all that great. Let's just say Tony and her ex are still living in Texas together. Hi, I'm Paul Havershrud. Welcome to The Cost of Living. And yeah, Tony is separated and still living with her ex. It's not awesome. But the cost of housing in this country means she's not the only one doing it. Also today, how much would you pay to go to a movie? $10? 20? 30? More? Some bougie theaters are now on a mission to find out. Up first, back in the early 90s, Canada imported around 6,000 tons of avocados a year. Now, we bring in 20 times that. So how did this country get all guacked up? Remember millennials and avocado toast? Cut to millennials nodding, yes, enough already. Well, for all the flack they got for that stereotype, they came by it honestly. They were the first generation to grow up with avocados. Now, they're everywhere. In your salad and sushi. You can even get avocado milkshakes. So how did they go from being an exotic fruit to a grocery store staple? Monique Parsons says it wasn't just a happy accident. She's the co-author of Green Gold, the avocado's remarkable journey from humble superfood to toast of a nation. Monique, hello.
Hi, thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks for being here. So, when I was growing up, we couldn't really go to a store, buy an avocado, at least not that easily. I mean, could you?
Since I grew up in Southern California, the answer was yes. But then when I went off to college in New Jersey on the East Coast of the US, I was like, where are they? No, you couldn't find them in the 80s, certainly. And it wasn't until a little bit later into the 90s that we started seeing them everywhere. So part of our quest in writing this book was to figure out how that happened and who made it happen.
You said in the 90s things started to change. Is it possible to pinpoint, was there kind of a tipping point, a watershed moment?
There really was. So the year was 1997. So July 1997, and we're in the middle of the NAFTA negotiations. So it's the US and Mexico and Canada talking about trade. And for years, the Mexican avocado industry had been really fighting hard to drop what had been this decades-long quarantine on Mexican avocados into the US. So they had in 1914, the United States Department of Agriculture had said there's pests in the orchards of Mexico that could be really damaging to the California orchards, and therefore they put this quarantine down. So there'd been a lot of effort to study the orchards, study the fruit, figure out how to come up with a sort of a protocol to get them safely into the United States. The California avocado farmers fought it every step of the way, but then July 1997 was the big day when it all changed, and avocados were allowed into 19 U.S. states. But little by little over the next decade, sort of the juggernaut began, and that had a big impact on Canada as well. So as they were flooding into the United States, Mexicans started growing more and more acres of avocados, and the market just really opened up.
What was demand like at that time?
Yes, well, there was a lot of concern about that. So their solution was to pass a law. So there's now a law in the books in the United States that is all focused on promoting avocado consumption and research around the avocado. And millions and millions of dollars are going into that. It's funded through assessments on every pound of avocado sold in the United States, and their goal was to build consumption through marketing and get more people interested in figuring out how do you eat these and what are they.
What kind of things did they do to build that demand?
So part of what's happened is a lot of nutrition studies. So this law that I mentioned started something called the Hass Avocado Board, and the Hass Avocado Board, which takes in these assessments, has focused a lot of its money on reaching out to nutritionists and also funding university studies on what is it about avocados that makes them so healthy. So in a lot of the studies that we've seen, I think even going back to the around 2015, around the time when we see millennials really developing this fervor for avocados, is also at the same time studies were coming out showing how heart healthy they were, and that they even eating an avocado a day, no matter what your diet, can help lower cholesterol. So this became like a national phenomenon.
So the idea that are like a superfood, this was not an accident. This was just not like, oh, hey, that kind of benefited avocados. This was kind of more intentional.
Exactly. Yes, and I think our book, which I wrote, I should say, with my friend, the historian Sarah Alaback. She looked back. We looked back over 100 years. So it was 1916 when the California Avocado Association formed, and they even at that time talking about the health benefits of this fruit, but they always were pushing how it's a great replacement for butter, or it's even a meat substitute. But there's definitely been a lot of intentional marketing studies going to health benefits that's definitely reached the millennials.
Well, in your book, you talk about how avocados stack up against other fruits in terms of their global growth. Like, what does that look like?
Yes, I mean, it's really been one of the top growing fruits in the world. So I know in terms of pure consumption, I mean, grapes, apples, there are certainly more bananas are more popular fruits, but when you look at the rate at which avocados have increased in terms of people buying them, going from like not even knowing what they are to buying them, it's been an exponential growth.
Could anything slow that down? Like, what does the avocado industry worry about when it sort of lies awake at night? Does it think, oh, this is the thing that could get us?
Yes, I think they do worry. I mean, I certainly know that here in California, they're seeing prices drop. It's one of the lowest prices I think you can get. I think farmers are being paid about $1 a pound for their avocados right now, which really isn't sustainable in California. So they stay awake worrying about price, and they worry that there's sort of an oversupply in the market. So I went to something called the World Avocado Congress a few years ago that was being held in New Zealand. And it was avocado growers from all over the world. And they're growing them in India and in China and around all over Africa and in Spain. And the concern is, are people going to keep buying them? And they need new customers. They need people who've never tried an avocado to start trying them for this sort of juggernaut to continue.
I said we didn't really eat avocados when I was growing up, but we did have an avocado green fridge. I mean, was that because of the efforts of Big Avocado?
I think it really was. Yes. So I also had an avocado green fridge, and we were also, during just as the industry in California was taking off around the 60s, 1970s, there was a lot of momentum. It's also when the Hass avocado became the most popular avocado, and that was from a tree from Los Angeles County. And that had been sort of for decades prior, sort of a race about what's going to be the best one to grow and ship for the industry. And the Hass won the day because its flavor and also its nice thick skin, it makes it good for shipping. But they were also promoting it as widely as they could. So things like color, yeah, an avocado, there were avocado green cars, avocado green appliances. But we were kind of delighted to find that even going back into the 20s and 30s, there were avocado green fashions. So very high-end ladies wear and leather purses and shoes were being pitched in avocado green, and that was also partly because of the efforts of that early industry.
And from what I understand reading your book, there's a Canadian connection here. Tell us about Bob Berg.
There certainly is a Canadian connection. I was delighted to find it. My mother is from Saskatchewan, and my grandfather was a railroad engineer. He drove steam engines for the Canadian Pacific, and I was absolutely delighted when I found out. So, the University of California has an avocado breeding program, and the most important scientist for that program was this man named Bob Berg. He was born in a little town outside of Saskatoon. He went to the University of Saskatchewan and studied agriculture, came down to the US and studied plant genetics at Berkeley. And he was instrumental in sort of developing different varieties of avocados and sort of joining this really important study to try to figure out what was going to be the best for the industry. And the thing that was kind of sad is that he did it. Like, he came up with this wonderful avocado that stayed green when ripe. It tastes a lot like the Hass. In fact, it's related to the Hass. He named it the Gwen after his wife, who was also from Saskatchewan. But by the time he debuted it, and this was like in the early 80s, the Hass had already started to win over the industry. And so you can still find Gwen avocados in California, but he had sort of discovered it a little bit too late. So yeah, Canadian has a really important role in the avocado story.
You wrote a whole book about avocados, you and your co-author, spent years on it. Are you kind of full up of avocados now? Are you kind of tapped out? Or, do you still like them?
I know. I was worried that would happen, but I would say both of us became more obsessed than ever. So Sarah, my co-author, said she finds herself eating more avocados just plain. And I find myself being more open to trying them in different kinds of recipes. And, realizing that in parts of the world, they're put in smoothies, they're put in, avocado boba tea and avocado mousse. So I've gotten a lot more creative with how I'm using them. But I think partly their versatility is also what's kept them around for a long time.
Well, I will let you go and have your avocado mousse. Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's great to talk to you.
Monique Parsons is the co-author of Green Gold, the avocado's remarkable journey from humble superfood to toast of a nation. This is The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Havershoot. When movie theaters started doing Cheap Tuesdays, it was a marketing experiment, a way to rustle up a crowd on the slowest night of the week. And it was a hit. Budget-conscious movie lovers made it a weekly pilgrimage. Now, theaters, hoping to boost their bottom line, are trying something different. And it doesn't look anything like Toonie Tuesdays.
When Kyle Gretsch visits the movies, it's usually to see a big blockbuster.
They tend to have, dramatic sound and visual, so seeing it on the big screen does have an impact.
And for Kyle, comfort is a priority. That's why he springs for the VIP experience, even if it costs more.
They've got big dual reclining chairs, and it feels a lot more like sitting on the couch at home, frankly.
With VIP, he can pick his seat in advance. He never gets stuck in the front row, and he likes that he can order a beer.
Or have them bring my popcorn or some chicken fingers to my seat.
Across Canada, movie theaters are upping what they offer, but that comes with a higher price tag. In 2020, the average movie ticket cost about $10. Now it's up around $12 to $15. But if you add all the bells and whistles, you can end up paying double that.
Yeah, we charge $3 more, but we gave you a heated seat.
Dave Cohen is the president of Landmark Cinemas.
We charge $6 more for our Laser Ultra experience, but you get the best possible projection and sound.
It's the second largest movie operator in Canada behind Cineplex. Over the last decade, both chains have spent big money trying to make their theaters feel more luxurious. And it's not just seats and screens. It's snacks, too.
Well, we started with hot dogs, and then we started doing fancier hot dogs, like nacho dogs and Chicago dogs, and all kinds of different stuff.
Some theaters have waiters who bring fishbowl cocktails right to your seat. Landmark still has popcorn and Cheap Tuesdays, but Dave says it is leaning into the VIP vibe.
Pre-pandemic, our premium experiences would have been maybe 15 to 20% of our visitors, and now they're more like 40 to 45% of our visitors.
This isn't just so movie lovers can have comfy seats and Bellinis. Theaters need the money. Hollywood isn't cranking out as many big blockbusters, so theaters have less to show. And there's streaming to compete with.
Many people still want to see movies, but fewer feel that urgency to go opening weekend. So audiences are being a lot more selective with what justifies a trip.
Brandon Katz is an entertainment analyst. He says not as many people are going to the movies, so theaters are trying to get more from the people that are.
What these enhanced, more luxurious experiences that cost more is doing is basically maximizing revenue from the kind of smaller, more selective audience. And inflation and these premium experiences is kind of compensating for the declining ticket sales.
And it is compensating. In the States, some theaters are charging up to $50 for premium seats. That's $50 US. But it's a delicate balance. Charge too much, and people may just stay home.
When you increase the cost, you begin to alienate the people who love movies the most. That is your core audience.
Kyle Gretsch recently saw a film in a regular movie theater where he had to line up for snacks and sit upright in a cramped seat for 2 hours.
Comparatively, it was like being on a bus instead of being on a couch.
It's hard to go back to economy when you've tasted first class. For The Cost of Living, I'm Jenny DeRosio.
I'm Paul Haversrud. This is The Cost of Living. And our next story first ran earlier this season. You know how they say that half of all marriages end in divorce? That stat is not a great one for love.
Well, fortunately, the numbers actually show it's not as bad as all that. It's more like 1 in 3.
Okay, Leah Hendry here with some good news. And you come bearing some better news for love.
Better-ish. Divorce rates have actually been trending down for a while, but for those that do get divorced, it can still obviously be tough, emotionally and financially.
Well then, let's talk money.
You might have heard of something called the marriage wealth premium. So basically, married people tend to accumulate more wealth. And it makes sense. A couple can share household costs, they can split the rent or the mortgage payments. But if you get divorced, you've got to cover all those expenses alone.
That's another set of pots and pans. You need to buy your own can opener.
Or curtains. So many costs, big and small, and they do really add up. Legal fees can quickly climb into the thousands of dollars. But the main reason that it hurts? The high cost of housing. The average home price in Canada is nearly $700,000. And if you live in Toronto or Vancouver, it's more than $1 million.
And you're just one person, you got to make that down payment. If you're renting, you got to make rent, and you're doing this just all on your own.
Yeah, and of course, everyone's situation is different. You know, a lot depends on your age, finances, how much time you still have in the workforce. But most people, they get divorced in their 30s or 40s, so they often won't have enough equity in their home yet to buy 2 houses. Even a condo can be tricky to pull off once you split up assets. Krishna Pendakur is an economist at Simon Fraser University.
Suppose you had 1 2-bedroom condo in Vancouver, not that nice, $1 million. There is literally nothing to buy for $500,000. So that set of people in the lower end of the housing market, those people are likely out of the owned accommodation market and into the rental market.
He just called $1 million condo not that nice. That is wild.
I know, right? But in Vancouver, that's the reality. And faced with this, some people are making a radical choice to make ends meet.
And when you say radical, you mean?
They're continuing to live with their ex.
Okay, that's a choice.
It's often not ideal, but if you're too broke to fully break up, people are doing what they gotta do. I met a woman named Toni Caldarella who's going through this. She lives in Mission, which is in BC's Fraser Valley, and last summer her husband asked for a divorce after 14 years of marriage. She was blindsided. The housing situation in Mission is not great, and Toni and her ex quickly realize it's cheaper for both of them, for now, to continue living together.
And how's it going?
It's tense.
It's an awful situation because you do walk around on eggshells a lot of the time. We do have separate sort of living areas. He does live downstairs most of the time. I sort of take over the upstairs, but we have a sort of a community kitchen because as soon as, one person's in the room, the other person kind of leaves. And I guess we're kind of living with it. Even so, it takes its toll on you. I think I've aged 10 years since this started.
I can't tell you how icy I would be if this were me.
I think I'd be polite, but maybe kind of silently cursing in my head. I mean, in Tony's case, there's not a lot of great choices right now. They need to sell their place if they want to rent or buy something else, but nothing is selling. They've already dropped their asking price once, so for now, they're stuck together in the same house.
Okay, they are stuck, but let's just get back to the moving, the renting. I mean, is that at all possible?
She has looked, but the rental market in Mission, there are not a lot of options. Tony only works part-time, and her share of the mortgage right now is $1,300 a month.
Rent is over $2,000 a month, which is more than what I'm paying for my mortgage. So it's a catch-22. For now, this is our best option. Even though, as I say, the quality of life is not good.
She says for now. Does she have a longer-term plan?
She does. I mean, she and her ex, ultimately, they want to sell. So at that point, she might be able to buy again, but it's not going to be a 3-bedroom house like she has now. She's looking at mobile homes and smaller apartments, but even the smaller condo is priced at around $400,000 or $500,000.
I think I could afford it, but then there's the bank. Will the bank think I can afford it?
Yeah, you walk into a bank, you only have one income, that only qualifies for so much. Leah, do we have any idea how many people are doing this, living with their ex?
Well, StatsCan doesn't track this specifically, but I spoke to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The CMHC said ex-couples living together, it's a reality, and it's happening more now that housing has become so expensive. It's actually showing up in some of the technical analysis that they do about how households are coping with housing prices as well as affordability.
I just keep thinking about what this would actually be like to live through because, at least in my experience, everything ends badly or
Okay.
or it doesn't end. But, I suppose maybe that's not everyone's experience. I mean, I suppose it could be amicable.
And sometimes living with your ex may not be the worst idea. It might just buy you some time and help you save some money. That was the case for Adam Clement, who lives in Toronto. When he and his ex-wife split up 13 years ago, they owned a triplex not far from downtown. Rather than sell it and pay 2 rents or mortgages elsewhere, they decided to stay put with their young daughter. Not living together, but separate apartments in the same building.
I don't know what we would have done if it wasn't a triplex. I'm not sure, if we would have been able to share a kitchen,
So they were close together, but they were kind of walls in between them. They still had their own space, it sounds like.
Yeah, and they had their daughter too. And the whole living together thing, it did help their bottom line. If Adam had to find another apartment after the divorce,
there's no way that we would have been able to be in the same neighborhood. If I had have had to rent an apartment and keep the mortgage going, I would have had to move into a neighborhood where prices were much cheaper.
Adam and his ex, they lived in the same triplex like this for close to 10 years. And Judith Vandenberg says she actually likes this kind of thinking. She's a realtor in Maple Ridge, BC, and she says too often couples make poor decisions in the heat of the moment.
So a lot of people will go through a divorce and go, oh, that's okay. I just want to get rid of it. You can have the house, you can have this. And then in the later years, they'll regret what their decisions were back then.
Yeah, for most people, your house is your biggest asset, the biggest one you'll ever own. So you need to make smart decisions around what you do with that.
You do. And Judith told me there's often a lot of pressure to sell and move on quickly after a divorce. We've all seen bargain basement prices for homes where the couple's divorcing. But if you're almost giving your house away, it can really hurt long term. And she says for many people, how much they get for their home can dictate how much of a cushion they're going to have to start over.
So if you do decide to stick it out, live together, it's going to be hard on the emotions, but for the finances?
Yeah, and that's what Tony's doing. She'd rather be somewhere else, but with the market the way it is, Tony says they may have to continue living together for another year or more. Luckily, Tony says she's become less emotional about the house.
The longer it's taking, the more I'm detaching myself from the home, and it's now just a house. It's wood, it's windows. So it's okay to sell. It's not a home anymore. There's no love in here.
She sounds so matter of fact, but then you listen to what she's saying, and what she's saying is just really sad.
It is sad, but she now just kind of sees the house as an investment and making sure that once it's gone, that she's actually financially secure.
So no room for romance in Canada's housing market. All right. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, Paul.
That's all for the show. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Leah Hendry, Daniel Nerman, Jenny DeRosio, and Jennifer Keene, with help from Jeff Kynock. I'm Paul Havershrud. Thanks for listening.